Picture this: a creature living at the bottom of the ocean, barely 6 inches long, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, but packing a punch faster than a bullet fired from a handgun. Sounds like something straight out of a superhero movie, right? But this isn't fiction. This is 100% real, verified by physicists at Duke University. Meet the mantis shrimp. The name alone sounds harmless, almost cute, but don't let that fool you for a second. In the marine biology world, this thing has earned itself the nickname the pocket-sized destroyer. Why? Because its punch can shatter snail shells, crack crab claws in half, and it's actually cracked tempered aquarium glass at multiple zoos, leaving staff standing there completely dumbfounded, wondering what on earth just happened. But here's the wildest part. It's not even the punch itself that's the craziest thing about this creature. It's what happens right after that punch lands. A bizarre phenomenon so strange that even the shrimp gets caught up in its own aftermath. But before we get to that, let's dig into just how different this little guy really is. Because trust me, it only gets crazier from here. Most people hear mantis shrimp and picture something like the tiger shrimp or lobster they'd order at a restaurant. Nope, not even close. This thing isn't even closely related to regular shrimp. It belongs to its own entirely separate lineage, one that's been around for hundreds of millions of years, evolving in a completely different direction from the rest of the shrimp family. While your typical shrimp just swims backward, hides, and timidly pinches at food with tiny claws, the mantis shrimp plays by a totally different set of rules. Hit first, hit hard, no hesitation. There are actually 2 main types within this species. Think of them as 2 different fighting styles. One goes for crushing blows, called smashers. The other stabs like a spear, called spearers. Both are terrifying in their own way. But today, we're zeroing in on the smashers, because their punch is the real star of the show. Here's the thing about how this creature hunts. Most ocean predators have to chase down prey, lying in wait for hours, burning through tons of energy in the process. Not the mantis shrimp. This guy plays it smart and lazy. Dig a burrow, tuck into a rock crevice, and just wait. It'll patiently watch as a snail, crab, or unlucky little fish wanders into range. And when the moment comes, there's no chase, no wasted effort, just one single strike. That punch happens so fast the human eye literally cannot register it. Scientists had to use cameras, capturing tens of thousands of frames per second just to catch it on tape. And here's the kicker. It's not just the direct hit that takes down the prey. There's a second, almost ghostly punch that follows, something that sounds straight out of science fiction. And we're about to break it down. But first, let's talk about whether anything actually dares to mess with this thing. You'd think a creature packing this kind of firepower would have 0 natural predators, but that's not quite true. Bigger fish, octopuses, and certain moray eels can take one down, but only during one very specific window: molting season. That's when its usually rock-solid armor goes soft for a bit, turning the pocket-sized destroyer into an easy target for once. On top of that, its own species is just as much of a threat. Mantis shrimp are ridiculously territorial and aggressive. They'll straight up brawl with their own kind if they feel their turf's been invaded. Researchers have compared them to boxers who never take off the gloves, ready to throw down even with family. Now, let's get into the part that's had scientists scratching their heads for years. Here's a question for you. When a mantis shrimp throws a punch, does it hit its target once? Nope, it hits twice. And the second hit isn't even something the shrimp directly causes. Sounds impossible, right? How does one single punch create two separate impacts? When researchers broke this down frame by frame using high-speed cameras, they found something that blew everyone's mind. The instant that club slices through the water at insane speed, it creates a tiny gas bubble right at the point of impact. And that little bubble is anything but harmless. It collapses in a millionth of a second, sending out a second shockwave, along with an actual flash of light. Yes, it genuinely lights up for a split second, and generates heat nearly as hot as the surface of the sun, all within a blink so short you'd never notice it happening. What that means is, even if the mantis shrimp completely whiffs its punch, its prey can still get nailed by the shockwave from that collapsing bubble. Basically, this thing has a weapon you can't dodge, even when it misses. So what's actually going on here? Scientists call it cavitation, a phenomenon you'll also find on the propellers of high-speed ships. When something moves through water fast enough, the pressure right behind it drops so suddenly that the water turns to vapor, forming tiny bubbles. Once the object passes and pressure snaps back to normal, those bubbles collapse violently, unleashing shock waves, sound, heat, and even light. With a punch clocking in at speeds up to 23 meters per second, that's an acceleration thousands of times the force of gravity. The mantis shrimp is more than capable of triggering this cavitation effect, basically every single time it strikes. It's not a fluke, it's just physics. And here's the really impressive part. The club itself has this insanely intricate, multi-layered spiral structure that lets it absorb the very force it's dishing out without cracking or falling apart after each hit. Materials scientists are actually studying this structure right now to develop better impact-resistant armor and helmets for humans. Nature basically beat us to it. Beyond what's already been proven, there are a few fun theories floating around out there. Unconfirmed, but definitely worth mentioning. One theory suggests that the mantis shrimp's insanely complex color vision, it has over a dozen types of photoreceptors in its eyes, way more than humans, might not actually be for distinguishing subtle colors like people assume. Instead, it might just be there to help it react at lightning speed to danger or prey. Basically, those super eyes might just be backup for its already ridiculous punch speed. Another theory, a little more out there but fun to think about, suggests that if humans could ever miniaturize this biological spring mechanism, we could build tiny devices that launch energy without needing electricity or batteries at all. Just pure mechanics. Sounds like science fiction, but honestly, nature's been sitting on this tech for hundreds of millions of years. We're just now catching up. At the end of the day, we're talking about a tiny creature living quietly at the bottom of the ocean, with no big brain, no understanding of physics whatsoever. And yet, it's carrying around one of the most insane biomechanical systems nature has ever built. Sometimes, real power isn't about size. It's about how well you use the rules of the universe you're stuck living in. If this video just made you go, "Wait, what?" Do me a favor, hit that like button, share it with a friend who needs to see this, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the wild side of the animal kingdom. And seriously, drop a comment below and let me know what creature you want us to cover next. Color-changing octopus? Sharks that sleep with their eyes open? Something else you've always wondered about? I read every single comment, and whatever gets requested the most is what we're covering next. See you in the next one!